We come now in Plato's Symposium to the speech of Socrates, or the speech of Diotima, if you prefer, since most of what Socrates says will be borrowed from this woman, Diotima. Now, it'll probably take 2 videos to get through Socrates and Diotima. There's just too much to talk about, and I think it is the longest section of the Symposium. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the longest section. So, Socrates has just questioned Agathon, and I think we could summarize it by saying that in Socrates' questioning of Agathon, we learn that love is not as important as that which love loves. Love loves beauty, and beautiful things are good. No, good things are beautiful. All good things are beautiful. And love is a desire for that which it lacks. You don't love what you have. Love, eros, desire, is a love or desire, eros, for what you lack, not for what you already have, and therefore love is not beautiful, and love is not good. It's a pursuit of goodness and beauty. So now Socrates says, I'm using the Hackett translation still. Socrates says, I shall try to go through for you the speech about love I once heard from a woman of Mantinea, Diotima, a woman who was wise about many things besides this. Once she even put off the plague for 10 years by telling the Athenians what sacrifices to make. She is the one who taught me the art of love, and I shall go through her speech as best I can on my own, using what Agathon and I have agreed to as a basis. You can misread this. Socrates learned the art of love from this woman, Diotima. It doesn't mean anything sexual. Apparently, it's purely platonic. Pun intended. Socrates says, one should first describe who love is and what he is like, and afterwards proceed to describe his works. I think it will be easier for me to proceed the way Diotima did and tell you how she questioned me. You see, I had told her almost the same things Agathon told me just now, that love is a great god and that he belongs to beautiful things, and she used the very same arguments against me that I used against Agathon. She showed how, according to my very own speech, love is neither beautiful nor good. So the mistake Phaedrus and Agathon were making, the mistake of thinking that love is the most important thing rather than the pursuit of something greater, and in fact, the pursuit of the greatest thing. That mistake is a mistake Socrates says I used to make too. And we can connect this to people who, like Aristodemus in the estimation of Apollodorus, seem to be obsessed with Socrates rather than obsessed with the wisdom with which Socrates is obsessed. And a little later in the text, Aristophanes, who seems to be obsessed with Socrates rather than with the wisdom and the virtue with which Socrates himself is obsessed. And let's see, Socrates, like Agathon, had thought love was a great god, and love was beautiful, and Diotima initially showed him, long before he showed Agathon, that this is not the case. So then follows a conversation between him and Diotima recounted by Socrates. Now keep in mind how many different stories within stories and conversations within conversations we have here. Apollodorus is recounting to some rich businessman friend who you could think of roughly as occupying the place of the reader. Apollodorus is telling us the story of the famous drinking party where they gave speeches in praise of love, and he got this story from Aristodemus. And then Aristodemus' story has Socrates' speech where Socrates is recounting a previous conversation between him and Diotima. All right, so I'm definitely not going to just read the conversation of Socrates and Diotima. Let's read just the first bit, and then maybe I can summarize and hit highlights for a couple of pages. So, Diotima showed Socrates that love is not beautiful or good. And Socrates said, what do you mean, Diotima? Is love ugly, then, and bad? Is it ugly because it's not beautiful and bad because it's not good? But she said, watch your tongue. Do you really think that if a thing is not beautiful, it has to be ugly? I certainly do, says Socrates. And if a thing's not wise, it's ignorant. Or haven't you found out yet that there's something in between wisdom and ignorance? What's that? Says Socrates. Diotima replies, if it's judging things correctly without being able to give a reason. Surely you see that this is not the same as knowing. For how could knowledge be unreasoning? And it's not ignorance either, for how could what hits the truth be ignorance? Correct judgment, of course, has this character. It is in between understanding and ignorance. Now, there's just so much to talk about here. Namely, I could try to summarize everything from Plato's Meno and Plato's Theaetetus and Plato's Republic about knowledge and ignorance and what is in between them, accounts of correct judgment or of true opinion that are not quite knowledge but better than ignorance, of something like knowledge but not quite knowledge because you don't fully understand it. In medieval terms, you might be able to compare, but maybe there'd be some contrasting of this to an Augustinian account of faith without yet a full reasoned understanding of what we believe by faith. Although in Augustine, faith is also a form of knowledge when you're trusting God, who is perfectly reliable. So there's a lot of cross-references we could make. Let's just say, for example, I think if you go to the middle books of Plato's Republic, you will find a distinction between this might be in Book 5 of the Republic, a distinction between, you know what, I'm just going to check. There we go, Book 5, as I was suspecting. A distinction between knowledge, which sees what is, and ignorance, which sees what is not, and opinion, which is somewhere in between. And that is a passage to cross-reference with Symposium here, and connect to the more detailed epistemology in Plato if you want a fuller reflection on this particular idea that correct judgment is somewhere in between understanding and ignorance. Also, in my marginalia, I scribbled something about late in the text called the Theaetetus, another dialogue of Plato. True judgment without an account is better than ignorance. Anyway, love is going to be something in between ugly and beautiful, ignorant and wise, bad and good. And so Diotima says, then don't force whatever is not beautiful to be ugly, or whatever is not good to be bad. It's the same with love. When you agree he is neither good nor beautiful, you need not think he is ugly and bad. He could be something in between, she says. And Socrates says, everyone agrees he's a great god. And Diotima points out that people who say that are ignorant. Let's start skimming some of this content. And Diotima even suggests love is not a god. Now, this is something contrary to anything we've heard before in the Symposium. Everyone was saying love is a god. Love is a great god. The greatest, says Phaedrus. Love is a great god. The greatest, says Agathon. Love is great, but maybe not as great as that which love pursues and desires and fosters, like wholeness in Aristophanes, and harmony of disparate elements in Anaximachus the doctor, and virtue in Pausanias. Love is great, but not as great as that which it pursues, and love is definitely a god. And Diotima is saying love's not great, and love's not a god, but that doesn't mean love is mortal. Then what could love be, I asked, immortal? Certainly not, says Diotima. Then what is he, says Socrates? He's like what we mentioned before, she says. He's in between mortal and immortal. What do you mean, Diotima? He's a great spirit, Socrates. Okay, so he's great in the spirit category. He's a great spirit, Socrates. Everything spiritual you see is in between God and mortal. And now we're talking about spirits who are messengers who shuttle back and forth between the two, conveying prayer and sacrifice from men to gods, while to men they bring commands from the gods and gifts in return for sacrifices. Being in the middle of the two, they round out the whole and bind fast the all to all. Rounding out the whole and binding fast the all to all. Now that sure sounds like Anaximachus' account of love. So it is very likely that if you assume that Socrates' account here is the pinnacle, the greatest account, that you will find elements from all the other accounts within it. And that might be the right way to read the Symposium. I suspect it is the right way to read the Symposium, but I also suspect that it's still not the whole picture. Like, the Symposium is itself an account, and so is Plato's Republic, and you have to piece them all together, as perhaps Plato did quietly, without a lot of people listening, not even his worst students, only for his best students, and great interpreters of Plato who tried to do like Plotinus long ago attempted this, and I think probably did a rather good job on the whole. All right, so love is the connection, the messenger between mortal and immortal. Love is an intermediary. And then Diotima tells the story of the father and mother of love. Love is born from Penia, who is poverty, and Poros, which, according to our footnotes, means way or resource. Actually, yes, I have some familiarity with that word. Poros, way, and Penia, poverty, are the parents of love. So, who are Poros and Penia? They're gods, not the greatest of the gods, not Zeus and Aphrodite. In fact, they are at the original birthday party for Aphrodite. The gods are having a celebration because Aphrodite has been born. And so Poros, who's a god whose name means way, Poros is there, and Penia is there. Penia meaning poverty. And Poros gets drunk from nectar because they haven't invented wine yet. And Penia lies down next to Poros while he's drunk, and she gets him pregnant, which was her plan. And so love is born from Poros and Penia. Love was born to follow Aphrodite and serve her. Aphrodite, remember, is the goddess of beauty. So love is not the same thing as Aphrodite, like others had said. Pausanias said, there's two Aphrodites, heavenly and earthly. And Socrates says, no, love follows Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. But love is not beautiful himself. And love is conceived on the day of the birth of Aphrodite, and so he's born to follow her. And that's why he's also by nature a lover of beauty, because Aphrodite herself is especially beautiful. This is what Diotima is saying to Socrates. If I said it was Socrates, well, I wasn't wrong, but it's complicated. So Diotima continues, as the son of Poros and Penia, his lot in life is set to be like theirs. So love is always poor. Love is always poor. But also, love is not delicate and beautiful, as some people think he is. Instead, he is tough and shriveled and shoeless and homeless. Note that this sounds almost like Socrates. Always poor, far from being delicate and beautiful. Instead, tough and shriveled and shoeless and homeless, always lying on the dirt without a bed, sleeping at people's doorsteps and at roadsides under the sky, having his mother's nature, always living with need. But on his father's side, he's a schemer after the beautiful and the good. He is brave, impetuous, and intense, an awesome hunter, always weaving schemes, resourceful in his pursuit of intelligence, a lover of wisdom through all his life, a genius with enchantments, potions, and clever pleadings. He is by nature neither mortal nor immortal. But now he springs to life when he gets his way. Now he dies, all in the very same day. Because he is his father's son, he keeps coming back to life. But then anything he finds his way to always slips away, and for this reason love is never completely without resources, nor is he ever rich. Love is an in-between figure, and not exactly a god, but not mortal either. And the description of love has several connections to Socrates. Love is a lover of wisdom. Love is a philosopher. Love goes without shoes, and is something like an exaggerated homeless version of Socrates, as he is portrayed in this story. Okay, so let's see if we can wrap up this video. There's still so much to talk about in the speech of Diotima. Love is between wisdom and ignorance. Like his mother, he has a touch of poverty. Like his father, he finds a way. He is therefore the paradigmatic pursuer of what he lacks, rather like a philosopher. And those who love wisdom fall in between the extremes of wise and ignorant. That is to be connected to any number of Platonic texts, but start with the Apology. The philosopher is not ignorant as such, but certainly not wise either. If he had wisdom, he would not be a philosopher, which is to say, a lover of wisdom, which is to say, a pursuer of wisdom, which is to say, someone who does not have wisdom and is trying to get it. And I'd better pause and sort through my thoughts. There's just so much to talk about. And I haven't succeeded in ordering my thoughts enough, but I'm ready to keep going. My dear Socrates, that then is the nature of the spirit called love, says Diotima. Considering what you thought about love, it's no surprise that you were led into thinking of love as you did. On the basis of what you say, I conclude that you thought love was being loved rather than being a lover. I think that's why love struck you as beautiful in every way, because it is what is really beautiful and graceful that deserves to be loved. And this is perfect and highly blessed, but being a lover takes a different form, which I have just described. Love is, once again, not beautiful itself, but it is the love of beauty. And I'll probably skip over any number of other things we could say about this. The lover of beautiful things has a desire. What does he desire? Says Diotima. Socrates answers that they become his own. Which calls for another question. What will we get if we have the beautiful things that we want to become our own? Socrates doesn't know how to answer. So Diotima tries a related question. What about good things? Tell me, Socrates, a lover of good things has a desire. What does he desire? Socrates answers that they become his own. And what will we get if we have good things? We will have happiness. Our footnotes remind us this is the English word eudaimonia, which you could translate blessedness. It's the state of the good life, and it's a rich word that I will say nothing further about at this time. So having good things is the source of happiness. So every desire for good things or for happiness is a form of love, says Diotima. And people pursue love in different ways. And then Diotima references the ideas of Aristophanes. She says, there is a certain story according to which lovers are those people who seek their other halves. But according to my story, a lover does not seek the half or the whole unless it turns out to be good as well. I say this because people are even willing to cut off their own arms and legs if they think they are diseased. I don't think an individual takes joy in what belongs to him personally, unless by belonging to me he means good, and by belonging to another he means bad. That's because what everyone loves is really nothing other than the good. Do you disagree? And Socrates agrees. Okay. So once again, you can find elements of and references to the other speeches in the speech of Socrates, and you could possibly piece them all together and use Socrates as your guide for a complete picture. Diotima here, referencing the ideas of Aristophanes, says, well, it's not quite right. What we love is not simply the other half that we were cut off from. What we love is the good. What we love is goodness. In fact, if we had a gangrenous arm, we would cut off our whole arm, because what we want is goodness, not just wholeness of whatever we originally were. All right. And I think I'll just make a few very quick observations and try to wrap this up. There's so much to talk about. Pregnancy. They talk about pregnancy. Diotima says, all of us are pregnant, Socrates, both in body and in soul. Yes, we all are pregnant. I as well. And Socrates as well. Now, no one gives birth in ugliness, but in beauty. Beauty is in harmony with the divine, the goddess who presides at childbirth. She's called Moira, or Eilithuia, and she is really beauty. That's why the presence of beauty, blah, blah, etc., never mind. What love wants is not beauty as you think it is, says Diotima, or not simply beauty, but reproduction and birth and beauty. Reproduction is what mortals have in place of immortality. Reproduction is what we do instead of living forever like the gods do. Gods don't need to reproduce like humans do. All right. What shall we say about this pregnancy that everyone has, including Socrates, including the males? Let's skip over a full page and a half almost, and say that Diotima says some people are pregnant in body, others in soul. And now I'm just about ready to wrap this up. I think all I really want to do is say something about what she means about pregnancy in body and pregnancy in soul. And I see now that I really have to just read a few more lines. Diotima says to Socrates, now, some people are pregnant in body, and for this reason turn more to women and pursue love in that way, providing themselves through childbirth with immortality and remembrance and happiness as they think for all time to come. While others are pregnant in soul, because There surely are those who are even more pregnant in their souls than in their bodies, and these are pregnant with what is fitting for a soul to bear and bring to birth, and what is fitting, wisdom and the rest of virtue, which all poets beget, as well as all the craftsmen who are said to be creative. But by far the greatest and most beautiful part of wisdom deals with the proper ordering of cities and households, and that is called moderation and justice. When someone has been pregnant with these in his soul from early youth, while he is still a virgin and having arrived at the proper age, desires to beget and give birth, he too will certainly go about seeking the beauty in which he would beget, for he will never beget in anything ugly. Since he is pregnant, then, he is much more drawn to bodies that are beautiful than to those that are ugly. And if he also has the luck to find a soul that is beautiful and noble and well-formed, he's even more drawn to this combination. Such a man makes him instantly teem with ideas and arguments about virtue, the qualities a virtuous man should have, and the customary activities in which he should engage. And so he tries to educate him. Oh my gosh, I need to stop there. There's so much to talk about. Okay, first of all, let's clarify. Pregnancy, in body and pregnancy and soul, and all of us are pregnant, guys included. She's not saying guys are pregnant in soul, but not in body. Even men are pregnant in bodies. So the word pregnancy here must be taken loosely to mean having within us something we can give life to outside of ourselves, maybe? I'm not sure that's the right description. Anyway, let's next observe. Here is at least one place where the speech of Socrates connects to Pausanias. Remember, Pausanias said, the lesser form of love is more physical, and the higher form of love is more into virtue. But then his account of that was all about Athenian homosexuality, and it was it also had its very prominent physical aspect. All right, so Diotima sounds kind of like that, saying some people are pregnant in body, and men like that are interested in women so they can have babies, so they can get the women pregnant, so there can be babies and reproduction, and that's what they do for immortality. Whereas people who are pregnant in soul, which seems to be the higher form of pregnancy, and now abandoning at least it looks like it, abandoning the sexual aspect that Pausanias spoke of in his account of the higher form of love, people who are pregnant in soul are interested in begetting the virtues. And I don't know why I don't have them circled in my text, but we reference wisdom, justice, moderation. I would expect courage to be mentioned, and maybe I'm just skimming too quickly, but I'm not seeing it. Nevertheless, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. Wisdom, courage, and moderation. That's 3 of the 4 cardinal virtues. All right. And what does a man who is pregnant in soul, wanting to give birth to virtue, wanting to have wisdom and moderation and justice, what does he do? He finds another beautiful soul. And what does he do? Well, he doesn't do what Pausanias does, which is homosexual acts with that person. What the soul what the manly male pregnant in soul does in the speech of Socrates, recalling the wisdom of Diotima, or at least the philosophy of Diotima, is try to educate that person. He tries to educate him, says Diotima. So here is room actually for not the perhaps oversimplified, hey, everyone's gay, no one seems to care about it, interpretation of this. Here's room for saying that this may be a really interesting, strong, powerful, I don't know what adjective to use. This might be a really interesting, that adjective will fit well enough, critique of Athenian homosexuality. Because Alcibiades, in the next section of the text, is going to be someone who is exactly like what Socrates is talking about. Socrates is wanting to educate Alcibiades in the flashback story Alcibiades is going to tell. Socrates is wanting to Socrates is wanting to reproduce something immortal, so to speak, in the soul of Alcibiades without any sexual acts with Alcibiades. But Alcibiades, who is obsessed with Socrates, is surprisingly uninterested in education and surprisingly interested in uh, having some sexual encounter with Socrates. And it's possible that one thing that is implicit in the text is these homosexuality customs that were normal in Athens at the time, that Pausanias was praising so highly. These are bad. These corrupt things. They take what should be a good education, where an older, hopefully wiser man is a mentor to a younger man and educates him and helps him become virtuous. It takes that relationship and corrupts it by adding a sexual aspect to it that just shouldn't be there. All right, that is one plausible reading of the text, and I think it's probably correct, though I'll probably begin forgetting it immediately. Now, before we get to Alcibiades, we've got to do the rest of the speech of Diotima, and it's gonna be awesome, and I will shut up for now. Thanks for watching.